That's terrific, Paul. So, boy, these are some really hot button issues: the graffiti, and of course the street maintenance, and the public safety issues. Which do you think is more important than the other, or is there any other issue that you feel should be emphasized more in the 5th District?
Well, particularly in the 5th District, there are some other issues. I think the really key issues that people care about that I haven't mentioned so far are development and traffic.
Okay.
And
density problems in the 5th District.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I've watched it for the 45 years that I've lived within the boundaries of the 5th District. Even when I was in West Hollywood is a city that's within the 5th District. Mm-hmm. So I haven't been more than a couple of blocks out for about 45 years. And I've watched it, and we have had out-of-control development in the area. And you know, we see 40-story buildings going up and being approved one after another in Century City. We see similar things all over the 5th District, and we see tremendous, overwhelming traffic as a result.
Yeah.
And I think what this district needs, number one, is someone that people can be sure will stand up to developers. And I'm the one candidate.
Honestly, would you do that?
Well, I'm the one candidate that can say, I've been on a city council. I've told developers no. I've had 18-story projects come before the city. Okay. Sometimes we vote them down. Sometimes we just tell the developer it's just not going to happen, don't even bother. When I was on the West Hollywood City Council, I was considered by both sides to be a reasonable person in terms of development. I would meet with both sides, I would identify all the problems, I would be convinced that they could be mitigated, and then I would either, if I thought all the problems could be handled appropriately, I would approve a project, otherwise I would turn it down. And I believe the largest project that I both voted for and got built was about 3 stories. So it's a very different scale from what we allowed in West Hollywood to what you see in the 5th District. Now, people look at West Hollywood and they think, wow, you must have voted to approve a lot of giant projects. But the fact is, most of what is there that are the tall buildings in West Hollywood were all approved before we became a city. Okay. And that's part of why West Hollywood became a city, because the county allowed out of control, out of scale development that matches the 5th District.
Now, you mentioned, Paul, the density and the problems with the large structures there. Isn't parking an integral part of that? How do you think you would address the parking issue? Or you think, is it a feasible matter to address now?
Well, I think parking is a significant problem. And one of the frightening things is there are folks in LA's planning department proposing an approach which is to intentionally underpark buildings, to discourage people from driving and to encourage them to take rapid transit.
Okay.
Now, in the 5th District, rapid transit doesn't exist. It's nowhere near the 5th District, except in some areas in the northern part of the district in the valley. Particularly on the west side, there is no alternative. There is no real rapid transit.
Automobiles or buses or something like this.
Right, and the fact is we are so underparked. It is virtually like the West Hollywood experience, which is we became a city and we had a huge parking deficit. And so the city required excess parking in every project, and we built parking structures, and we started to get a handle on a huge problem. We desperately need some parking structures in various areas in the 5th District, and we absolutely cannot allow developments to be built without adequate parking. In fact, what we should be looking for is extra parking spaces as a mitigation for any project that is going to get any kind of a variance. For a developer to get a variance, they have to do something that the community really needs and wants. And we'll say, okay, you can add an extra story, but we want you to put in an extra 50 parking spaces. So that's one of the problems, is that we allow variances on every project. And I would really only want to see that happen where the community gets something and the community says, through their neighborhood councils and neighborhood organizations and testifying in committees, we'll take this 6-story building, but you've got to give us some excess parking. It's got to be, otherwise we have got to stick to the zoning, which is something that we rarely do in the 5th District.
Paul, any closing remarks? You've really given us a lot of background on your experience and some of your thoughts, and anything in closing?
Well, I think the key thing is that people in this district want a council member with backbone.
Okay.
And I have a track record. I've said no to developers, but I've also in the legislature said no to some of the toughest interests that you can find anywhere. I've said no to the NRA, to the tobacco companies, to gaming interests. I've said no to insurance companies. I've said no to pharmaceutical interests. And it's difficult. It's politically dangerous, but I've been willing to take on just about everybody. I'm not afraid of developers. I'm not afraid to say no. And I think that's the kind of leadership that people want in the 5th Council District.
Paul, I thank you for attending our program. Remember, audience, that the voting is March 3, 2009. You've had a chance to hear from Paul Koretz, a very knowledgeable, experienced person who's helped our communities in all kinds of levels. Paul, thank you once again for attending the program.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.